It's a momentous day today, which means around about now, if you're listening to this in real time in the UK, very, very early in the morning in the US, or Saturday morning in Australasia, I'm about to take a very, very important picture. Lots of verys here. It'll be of my youngest as he starts what we affectionately know in the UK as big school. And of course, you have to have the first day to big school picture in a uniform that no longer involves wearing short trousers, which I find, if I were to be entirely honest with you, a little bit daunting and tad emotionally sad. Yes, I know that he's moving on and there's adventures to come, but my little boy's getting big. He's growing up as our young lad. It's not so long ago that I used to be able to kid both our young ones that when Daddy was young, everything was in black and white. Colour hadn't been invented. No way, Daddy. Yeah, way. Grass was just grey. And the sea, that was grey, and the sky, that was grey. We only got colour probably, I don't know, late 70s. I had no idea that my team played in red on the football pitch. I just thought they always played in grey. Wow. Yeah. So we'll be taking our picture before he goes in, and I'll think of lots of those moments, no doubt. And I may need to wear my very yesteryear dark aviator glasses from the early 80s. Just in case there's a little more dust in the air than usual, obviously. I think back to the school year when I started so-called big school. Margaret Thatcher was about to send troops down to the Falklands, and NASA was about to launch 2 astronauts in a space shuttle to space for the first time, and the biggest home comfort launched that year, and we were the first in our street to have one, was, can you guess what? Yep, beanbag chairs. The closest we got to a video game was that sort of doot, 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 back and forth tennis game. Only 2 pubs in Hertfordshire had that. Yeah, so I know it's not a very photographic start to today, but it's a momentous day. And frankly, it's a good job you and I are walking together, because I really do need your company today. Welcome to the Photowalk, and it's a bit about URBEX today. Here's a snippet of what we're going to be talking about.
Today on the Photowalk.
I think many feel that urban exploration has something to do with this kind of time capsules. I feel that when going into abandoned home, that's the most time capsule thing that we've done.
One of Europe's most respected photographic urban exploration teams, Finland's Kimmo and Tanya of Abandoned Nordic, who've built up a sizable following on Instagram and through their website for the magical pictures they paint of buildings that have now fallen eerily silent. We'll hear from them later on in the show as today's guests. And it is the show of the week where we take a walk together, the only photo walk in the podcast sphere. Us with our cameras making pictures as we walk, me with my microphone and the digital mailbag from the week. And I'll tell you what's on the show in a moment. We're supported by mpb.com, who help you buy and sell and trade used camera gear in the US, the UK and Europe. And I think it's important to add that it's a service I personally use. But today, don't just take my word for it. Here's a few more words from Jan-Erik Mostrom, who is a definite friend of the show but knows what he wants when it comes to kit. Neil, I just want to say thank you, in brackets, again, for bringing mpb.com to my attention. I traded some kit through them before, bought 2 cheaper cameras and a lens, but a couple of weeks ago I sent in all my Nikon F gear to trade for some Nikon Z gear. I expected to pay around €300 once everything was done, but they upgraded the condition of most of my gear, and I got money from them instead. Very happy now, it's just a matter of waiting for the delivery so I can play around with the new shiny toys. Thank you again for mentioning MPB. So, today on the Photowalk, the worst trick in the photographic book when it comes to making people cry for a picture advert. Thank the Lord we've moved on from the trick I'm about to reveal to you. We remember the small flash blocks our parents used on their Kodak Instamatics. We launch our new 365 feature. Hear about a photographer who's been exploring a part of China that was razed to the ground during the 2008 earthquake that shocked the world. We try to tackle imposter syndrome with a little help from a special guest from the past, and ask, why do we place so many walls around us when it comes to style, and what we're prepared to try as photographers. There are some wonderful pictures on the show page today from photographers who've been making their own Friday photo walks, including Shadows and Shapes in The Hague. And we talk about one of the more emotional episodes that went out Wednesday just gone. We've some inspirational words too from former guests Miss Anne Harriman, show favourite Cara Mew, and RMB's Nikki Heppenstall. And before we start, hearty thanks and appreciation to USBMemoryDirect.com, who've also showed some faith in our photography daily community to make these shows. They've specialised in creating custom USB flash drives for a long time now, 50 styles of flash drives in various shapes, sizes and materials, all able to be customised with your logo. Add your branding to custom USBs, creating a valuable promotional product for your clients to keep for years to come. And for our listeners in the US and Canada, you can use the code FLASH15 when you go to their website to receive 15% off your first order of custom flash drives. Go to USBMemoryDirect.com, and of course I'll put the link on the show page. So let's get this photo walk moving. Boots on, lens caps off, obviously. Let's walk. I didn't really tell you where we are this week, did I? No, Neil. You were getting all melancholic about school, I know. We haven't come that far. I know the last couple of weeks I've been on my travels a bit, Leeds included. That was fun. But no, I've stuck a bit closer to home. I've come on a countryside walk close to a place called Aldermaston, which for those who know of Aldermaston might well associate it with the Aldermaston Weapons. Is it weapon AWE? Aldermaston Weapons. What does the E stand for? Anyway, if the grass wasn't green, it certainly would be, according to locals. Even if the world was only in black and white, everything would be green, luminous green. If you get my drift. Oh, let me get a picture first before we start. This wonderful old tree here, sort of sprawling branches. It's going to be one of my here's where I was images rather than anything particularly spectacular. Let's go for, I'm on the X100V f5.6. Quite wide enough. That's the problem. I'm zoomed in with this electronic zoom. I can't really get enough of the tree in. Let's go back a lot further. Right. Sprawling tree, start of the walk. Just a little scrapbook picture to say, here I am. Right, a little telling off for the first message. I like a telling off. And I like the glint I can see in the emailer's eye here, who is Justin Mace, who sent me a mail that started all in capital letters. So it shouted of urgent, or shouted of I'm upset. Neil, Neale, in capital letters. Fry's chocolate is still a thing, though now it's owned by Cadbury. There's actually a walk you can take in Bristol that takes you past what would have been the site of the original factory, which was huge. Oh yeah. Last week we were talking about Fry's chocolate, weren't we? And the travelling salesperson that my grandfather used to deal with from Fry's. Why were we on that subject? There was a reason, wasn't there? Yeah, anyway. So Justin says, yes, it's still a chocolate or candy bar, as you suggested. Peppermint cream or creme was my favourite. And you're right, Justin, I did a little homework, actually, and stand by for a photographic reference that came out of my homework about how they used to photograph the candy or the chocolate. What should we call it? Because I know we have half our audience are in the States and Canada, and the rest really spread around the world, many in the UK. But what should we call it? Candy or is it chocolate? Chocolate. I'm UK, so I should call it chocolate. There's another picture here. Sorry, I'm digressing now, but you know me. It's a lonesome. All the cows in the. Oh, don't turn away. Cattle has this habit. All the cows in the field here are black, except this one. We're on the black and white theme, except this one white cow. Here we go. That just sort of sticks out a mile. Oh, I can't. No, he's turned away. The picture that never was. Should we edit that bit out? Yeah, let's edit that bit out. They'll never know. Anyway, yes, you're right, Justin. I did some homework. Stand by for a photographic reference. that came out of my homework about how they used to photograph chocolate. So it all started out of a small shop in 1761, an apothecary. Apothecary. Do you have an apothecary? I have an apothecary every so often, which is a place that used to sell medicines and drugs. That's along the lines, really, of course, the way that John Pemberton invented Coca-Cola, isn't it? And I did dig a little deeper to find out that in the very, 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 more very's early days when Coca-Cola was actually called something else, it was called Pemberton's French Wine Cola. It had, get this, extract of cocaine in it, which was used back then, for painkilling. Not these days, of course. They stopped in 1929, you'll be pleased to know. So you've learned everything and nothing useful. But back on the Fry's thing, the Fry's chocolate, there was a very, very famous advert called Five Boys. Oh, we've arrived at a big field, which is full of Canada geese. And the footpath wants me to walk through the Canada geese. Oh, there they go. Now, half of them are flying away, and the other half are looking at me very menacingly. They have an attitude, don't they, Canada geese? It's this kind of like, oh, don't step over here. We'll have your ankles. Yeah, but back on the Fry's thing, it's going to be one of those days, isn't it? There was a famous advert called Five Boys, and you'll see it on the show notes page today. I had a look for this particular photographic image. I'll put it there for you. It was 5 pictures of one lad. They stretch from left to right. Oh, the cattle have all come across. Ah, where were you a moment ago when I wanted to photograph you, girls? Here you are. Good morning. How are you? Well, it's no good just remaining there silent. This is a podcast. You're supposed to say something. And I'm telling a story, and I've started about 3 times now. So let me get a picture, just to prove that you were there and I'm not talking to myself. I've put my microphone towards... What's going to be your name? You're Doris, aren't you? I think you're Doris. And you're Esme May. They're all reaching towards the microphone. Let me hold the microphone out. Esme May almost had the dead cat off the front of my microphone there. Oh, I hope that photograph works. See you later, girls. I was going to tell you the story about Fry's, but I can see that we'll never get this done if I stay there. See you in a while. So yeah, there were the 5 pictures of this one lad. And the idea of the advert was to show him in despair because he couldn't have the sweet treat. So he couldn't have this chocolate bar, right through to being told he could actually have this thing. And it was even better because it was Fry's. So it starts on the left with him being really unhappy, and it works all the way to the right, where he's ecstatic. And the first picture of him, the first photograph, is of him in tears. And the boy photograph was somebody called Lindsay Poulton, who'd been, well, he was one of the first photographic ads for a confectionery line, if not the first. And he was photographed in 1886 by his dad, who, for the crying picture, soaked a cloth in ammonia and wrapped it around Lindsay's neck to make him cry. Which is dreadful, isn't it? A story that Lindsay Poulton told in his 80s when he was given a tour of the Bristol factory, the Fry's factory, a while before it was closed. There we go. Photographic reference, and we got there in the end. I appreciate the links, as we call them, aren't usually this long. Anyway, you'll see that picture, which is a very collectible tin sign, worth a few bob, as they say, in the show notes. And then also in the show notes, we're starting out today, it seems, with your pickups from last week's show, which I encourage, by the way. If I say anything that's not entirely accurate, do let me know. Here's Graham with 2 E's, Graham Trauman, a Photowalker with you now for the last 5 months. I'm so pleased you decided when the new show was announced to stick with the Photowalk, but I wonder if when you're walking you can hear my voice screaming the odd correction from Walton on the Naze, which you would love if you come to Essex. Lots of sandy beaches and many inland walks too to make. Think of yourself as officially invited. I do. When you stumbled over the Kodak Instamatic last week, if I'd been eating a Garibaldi, it would most likely have been spat out in a very non-COVID friendly way to avoid choking. Of course, again, in capital letters. Why is everybody shouting at me this week? Of course it was the Instamatic your mother probably had. There were many incarnations, and I actually grew up learning my photography on those cameras. In fact, I probably still have it in our attic. If I can find it, dust it off, take some pictures with it, I'll send them in. All the best, Graham, with 2 E's. It's important, those 2 E's. Well now, Graham, with 2 E's, I posted some pictures I found of said camera on the show notes today beneath the Fry's ad, and it brought back a ton of memories for me. especially the model in the box which boasted of that little block flash. Do you remember the one that would just spin clockwise? You got four flashes, didn't you? Joop, and turned, joop, turned, 4 flashes. I shot a wedding a couple of weekends ago where I think I must have made 300, 400 shots of my flash during the manic dancing. I can't imagine having the expense of making just 4 and changing the cube. But from the pictures I found, I suspect the one that we had in the family, which was the Instamatic 133, which took these strange well, they were film cartridges, weren't they? Which you definitely can't buy now. I'm pretty sure it was that. From the little button on the front which allowed you to select between outdoor lighting and indoor incandescent conditions. But I do like the idea of a long tail project for this show, where you can dust off a camera that's not been used for several Star Trek Mr. Sulu warp factors and send in the scans of what you can create. I know we'll probably be asking too much there, but can you imagine a feature called My Mum's Camera or My Dad's Camera? Anyway, yes, I popped up the Instamatic cameras on the show page, and you're right, Graham, with 2 E's. When I cleared Mum's attic, I didn't find that camera. I certainly wish I had. I really do. But said no more shouty mails on the back of playing you one of my favourite inspirations from the past year. Talking of attics, do you remember Cara Mew's love affair with photography beginning in earnest when she did a house clearance that sort of revealed a very special treasure? Apologies if we've played this inspirational short clip before, but I thought it was very, very appropriate.
So I ended up turning up this house clearance, and I found it really heartbreaking. I could never do house clearance as a job because I became so emotionally attached in this lady's life. I even dressed up in her clothes, and I was sorting out her wardrobe, and I ended up taking her coat home with me. It's hanging in my wardrobe. But I became really emotionally attached to her. So as I was going through her things and bagging things up for charity shops and things that I wanted to take home, I kind of got to know her through her things, and it really hit me on how emotional it can be when you're gone, and the things that you leave behind is really, that's it, that was all that was there. And when I came to the last section of the house that I was clearing, it was a huge chest under the stairs, and the guy said to me, "Oh, it's just full of rubbish, there's nothing decent in there." But it was absolutely filled with photographs to the top. I spent about 4 or 5 hours going through them, and it had her wedding photographs in there, it had family, holiday, it had snapshots, days out. And from these photographs, I learned that she was a photographic apprentice in my local city, and she worked in a print lab that's no longer here. And at that time, it didn't really mean much to me, but I knew that the photographs were really important. So I ended up taking every single one home.
So you've got the pictures?
I have, yeah. I've kept every single one of them, yeah. Wow. I don't know what to do with them. I mean, I can't throw them out because that would be sacrilege. There's some that have got locations of the town in them in the background, which I think probably would hold a little bit of value to our local museum. So I will donate some of them to there. So I ended up keeping them all, became really attached to her as a person, never knew her. And it just so happened that after the house clearance was all cleared and done, and I took away the things that I wanted to sell or keep, and I'd sold them, I made almost to the penny the exact amount that my camera was.
Cara Mew. And I've mentioned I'm going to do another South Coast Portsmouth Way Photowalk soon, which is where Cara lives on the south coast of England. We'll go make some pictures, I think, where she did that house clearance and take a literal walk down Photographic Way. One thing our guests will mention today, slight spoiler, but only slight, is that we're talking about URBEX, urban exploration. I suspect it'll be the first of a couple of conversations we have on the subject, because Abandoned America have agreed to come on as well, which will be fascinating. Some amazing pictures. But today it's Nordic style with Kimmo and Tanya, based in Finland but travelling across that region, and actually a little bit of the UK as well. But one of the things they mention is when before they were really aware of abandoned buildings, they didn't really look for them. But as soon as it was in their mind, it sprung into their consciousness, they see them everywhere. And I feel the same way about I feel the same way about these huge, sprawling country houses. There's one here. I mean, I've lived in this area close to Aldermaston for years and years and years, and I keep finding there's one here. Let me get a picture. It's in the distance, so it's going to be one of those Where's Wally pictures. But because I don't think I can get closer to it because I'm walking away. But it says a field here, farmers' fields for miles and acres. And then in the distance, there's another one of these huge English country houses. There we go. But I doubt that one's doesn't look very abandoned to me. So I want to talk about urban exploration and daring to try new photographic genres in a moment. We'll talk urban exploration with your cameras, and a particular scary story from China, I suppose, an historical one. But before we do that, a couple of things to share with you. Our 365 has started. Cue, cheers, whoops, some kind of firework. Failing that, an unimpressed sounding wood pigeon. Wood pigeons, where are you? Absolute silence. But I'm excited. Why, Neil, though, you might be asking, are you doing a 365 starting in September? These things are supposed to sort of herald in a new year, surely. Well, in this day and age, where New Year's herald in the oddest things, I refer back to 2019 going into 2020. I think you can start any time you like. We'll make the rules on this one. So, yeah, we've started our 365, and the whole reason for it is to really invite our community to take part in a project together, which is really, really precious to me. We're going to do this thing very much together. If you've, and we've talked about 365s before, putting one picture up on Instagram or a website or a Flickr account per day, making one image every single day. And that's I suppose the sort of truest form of a 365. The most authentic, is that the right word? Not necessarily authentic, but the truest form of it is that a 365 is an image you make every day, and it's designed for you to get out and make pictures with your camera. So this 365 is a bit different, I'll grant you that, because as I've said before, I want it to show off your talents and to share your excitement about photography and your enthusiasm for the medium of making pictures. I heartily invite you to send pictures that you've made quite a long time ago. I really don't mind you doing that because I want this feature to be about inspiration. And so if you've thought, I'd love to do a 365, but really, I'm not sure I can keep that up every day. This feature is exactly for you. Initially, I said send in 1 to 3 pictures, but I don't mind. If you want to keep sending pictures in during the year, send them in. Don't send me too many in one mail, but send them in. And I've changed my mind slightly as well. I've found a way really on the blog of presenting these in a portrait orientation, or landscape or square, so whatever shape you like. And I'm not going to say black and white only or colour only. You have license to send in whatever you wish to send, whether it's colour or black and white. And that'll be our 365. And the first of our 3 that brings us up to date with today's episode come from, and you find this, by the way, on the website, so go to photographydaily.show, which has details of how you can send yours in as well. And if you go there, you'll find Community 365 right along the top bar in the menu. And the first 3 that start us are Mike Dries, Mike Miller, and Mike Hongkomp, which sounds like something from Monty Python, doesn't it? The 3 Mikes of the apocalypse. Which, if you look at Mike Miller's, incredible. I mean, it's a stunning forked lightning picture of yesterday, picture number 2. You'd have thought that day had come. I mean, look at the fury in that picture. And if you click on that, not all pictures will have lots of information, and you don't need to send lots of stuff in. So don't be feeling, I've got to write a photo essay each time. No. If you just want to send your picture, then I'm delighted to hear from you. But if you want to send in a link to go back to your website or your Instagram account, then fantastic. And if you do want to write a couple of words about how you took the picture, what it means to you, then equally fantastic. And Mike Miller, day number 2, he writes about how he made that picture of the forked lightning, including some magical information on how long the shutter was open and so on and so forth. Anyways, the community's really growing, and there's lots of things you can join in with. We've got the photo challenge open to our patrons. You can view that each month. And we have our slightly longer form stuff in the way of the photo essays too. And there are 2 new ones kicking around in there. I loaded them just the other day, so I did. Jason Fang on the photo essay has written this brilliant piece called How to Become Slightly Happier and Get a Bit More Done, alongside pictures he made out walking on a main street in New Zealand where the farmers decided to protest by bringing their tractors and jamming up the system, heavy machinery into town. There's a tease. And then Michael Clark in the UK on the East Coast, who usually likes to spend his time making landscape and phenomenal seascape pictures at sunrise. But as he says, summer's a tricky time really, because the sunrise is really early. And I get this kind of idea that Michael's thinking, I don't want to get up that early every single day. So in the summer months, he's been making this church project. And because he knows how to make a long exposure picture of the seascapes, you should see what he does with the skies around the churches. There we go. Another tease. And then just before I talk a little about some URBEX, I'm hoping this month to talk to Sanna de Wilde, I really am, who is the last photographer to appear in Photo Swindon, which we partnered this year. There are just a few weeks left, really, and Sanna is the last to show in the parks there. She studies the role genetics play in people's lives and how this shapes and affects communities. The outdoor expo is free, and each photographer has had their time in various parks and open spaces of a town called Swindon in the south of England to show a story, one at a time. If you want to go to, and this is easy to remember, it's at Photo Swindon, and that's on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. You can read news and see some pictures of that. So even if you're not in the UK, you can still experience that. Where do I go, left or right? Shout at me, left or right. There's an open field to my left, which takes me on another walk. Left or right? Left? Okay, all right. So while we're talking of exhibitions, here's one from Dave Shanley in sunny Stockport. Hello, Neil. I know it's a bit cheeky, but a mate of mine and a very competent and professional photographer is having an exhibition this month. Phil Mellier's exhibition is at Stockport's War Memorial and Art Gallery, all September long, 2021. Would you just give him a shout out on Friday's Photo Walk, please? Well, this is sounding like a radio show. A shout out? Do we need to play him a request as well? He's not asked me to do this. He's very quiet. I'd be red-faced if he knew. There we go. It's done. It's done. And Phil is all red-faced. I can't sadly attend myself, and I know our world audience won't be able to, but it's an exhibition that features Phil Mellier's study of his visit to China. And I saw a couple of pictures in the tease sheet on the website. So those in Stockport or not so far away, there we go, one for you. And I'll leave a link to Phil Mellier's work on his website, which I'd love you to go visit. This show is nothing but hopefully inspirational for the links that we put on the show page for you to follow, so that you can open your eyes and see what other people are doing with their photography. Well, just before I tell you a bit more, now I love this. So they've been out making bales or baling in the field, on this particular field anyway. And a bale just in front. It's very sort of typical farmer's field scene. This we've got oaks just on the left lining this field, and we've got this lonesome bale waiting to be collected later on. 250th, 4.5, ISO 160. I am worried sometimes that the pictures I make on my photo walk aren't as creative as I could possibly be, because I always have one eye or one ear or one mouth firmly on making the podcast, and I sometimes think I should make the photographs afterwards, but no, I like to do it while we're walking, really. See my pictures as a scrapbook. Anyway, back to Phil. Phil Mellier's work on his website, yes. I mean, it has particular resonance to today's guests and the subject of URBEX, urban exploration. Phil has made pictures in China, and one of the places he wanted to visit was a modestly sized city called Bechuan, which in 2008 was one of the places hit by that terrifying 7.8 magnitude earthquake that took over, nearly 90,000 lives. 5,000 of those were in Bechuan. And while I did go off and look at Phil's pictures, and then I watched some filming from that particular day as well. Horrific. I mean, the whole thing was, I think it was 2 minutes, 120 seconds of absolute terror. And from the epicenter in Sichuan, it just collapsed buildings across a huge. Was it one? This is a memory now. I think it was 100,000 square miles. Square kilometers. Oh, I really want to get that bit right. But it was a huge area. And Phil sort of took a pilgrimage, I suppose, to Sichuan when he was in China. And he says, the landscape reminded me of the Austrian Alps and the Canadian Rockies, whilst the town has been abandoned since the tragedy because it literally razed this town to the floor, to the ground. I observed less than 10 other visitors, and there was only one member of staff who was selling sunflowers that could be laid at a memorial, because this whole town has become, I suppose it's URBEX, but you'd certainly need to respect the fact that many people, 5,000 people, lost their lives in that city there. And now you can explore it, pay homage to it, pay respects to it, and that's exactly what Phil did. The devastation was intense and naturally emotional to experience, he writes on his website page, which I will link to today. Display boards showing portraits of the members of the local police force, as well as some office and factory workers who lost their lives, the shattered white ceramic tiled apartments, the toppled steel and glass public buildings, and even crushed vehicles, which of course were never moved, all on display to bear witness to the tragedy. But yes, I'll leave a link to that particular photo story that he made on the show page today. So that's URBEX of a very different kind, an horrific story behind it. But URBEX it is today as a theme for the interview, and shortly you'll be hearing from my two guests who are, as I said, Abandoned Nordic, Kimmo the writer, and Tanya the photographer, who explore these incredible abandoned buildings, which as I say, contrary to thought, are everywhere. It's just when you become aware, then you start to see them everywhere. You start to explore them. And here's just a small taste of what's to come in a short while.
I think that going into someone's old home, it's very personal feeling.
Yeah.
Because you get these hints and sights about places that you actually do in your own everyday life. So you see dead, you see clocks, you see newspapers, you see
postcards and
letters.
Hills, probably.
And it's a kind of a personal experience. And I think many feel that urban exploration has something to do with this kind of a time capsules. I feel that when going into abandoned home, that's the most like time capsule thing that we've done, because there's so many individual stuff there which is out of this world. But in many larger places like castles and villas, there might be not so many this kind of ordinary items that you could relate to.
More from Kimmo and Tanya coming very soon. Patron of the day today is, drum roll. There's no drum roll. I could look for the wood pigeon again, but he's not going to give me anything, is he? Emily Renier. And I'm going to link to her work on the show page today. I love her bio. I am Emily Renier, an empathetic and quirky Belgian-born photographer with a passion for being who we are unashamedly. Bravo! Emily is a wedding, birth, family and event photographer, or is she? Here is a mail she sent into the Photowalk, which perhaps will inspire you, if like Michael Clark, who we mentioned earlier, you'd like to try something different and don't want to be pigeonholed by how you think or describe yourself. I'll give you a link to Emily's website so you can go look at her work. Hey Neil. Well, the last couple of episodes have spurred me on to write in, as I haven't done so for quite a while. Something you mentioned in the show last week was a light bulb moment. Bing! And I thought I would share it with you. She didn't actually put bing. As you know, with my father passing, I was truly sorry to hear about that, Emily, and we talk about such, don't we, on the Photowalk itself. I know I talk about my dear dad so much. I kind of went through a few weeks of fog. See, I still can't say that word. Fug, there we go. With a brain that was the least creative it's been for a while. I'm not surprised, Emily. It's a tough time and, to come to terms with loss like that. Grief does that, I guess, Emily says, or at least the initial stages anyway. But now that shock is regressing, and I'm learning to accept the inevitable, and I'm ready to well and truly immerse myself in shooting again. However, you mentioned something in last week's Photography Daily that genuinely helps solidify an approach to my work, and that is embracing an opportunity may be what actually makes us professional. When I left a well-paid salaried job 4 years ago and started shooting professionally, my vision for the images I wanted to deliver was actually, in hindsight, way too strict. So much so that I perpetually ran into brick walls, turning down opportunities on the basis that it's not what I do. Never really asking myself, well, why? Well, why can't I do that? Why not? I had a friend of mine, I think the company still exists. He must be a good friend, Neil. You don't know whether his company exists, but his company was called Why Not? Andy. It's an agency in London, it's called Why Not? And the ideas that they have for other companies, extraordinary. I was lucky very early on when I was doing a lot more commercial work, before Emily, said, it's not what I do anymore. Andy gave me some terrific work for his agency called Why Not? You probably reminded me. I must reach out. Andy, remember me? Anyway, I digress. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. He said, you do digress a lot on that photo walk, you know. But I quite like it, because it's exactly like I am. Yes, why not? You mentioned last week that you attended a Hindu wedding and ended up taking quite a few portrait requests from guests. And I actually really liked the way you put it, which was, why not? I don't normally do this. But yes, I can enjoy this too. Since I've started shooting for money, I've tried to define in my own head what a professional photographer should be. Contentious issue in our industry, I know. I myself have the imposter syndrome much of the time, so I do approach the title professional photographer with humility. But actually now I think I'm getting somewhere in my own head with what that means to be, well, professional. I know what you mean about that. We talk about imposter syndrome, don't we, from time to time? Time to time, Neil, almost every week. Actually, we mentioned him before. Mike Miller sent in something amazing about imposter syndrome. There's quite a long piece, and I've yet to properly pick it apart and pull out a few bits to use on the show, but I will do, because it was a really well-written piece, or there was some study about imposter syndrome. I described myself, actually, as a visitor for quite some time in this business. I couldn't use... Well, I could. I mean, I used the word professional photographer, Emily, but I didn't really... I don't think I felt comfortable with it for easily. I mean, half the years I've been working as a professional photographer. I mean, where are we now? 17 years, 18 years now, coming up for? I suspect that the first half of that, I kind of felt a bit of a visitor. My very good friend Giles, who I talk about, an army photographer, an exceptionally good photographer, documentary photographer. I speak of him in the past tense, only for the reason that he now proudly describes himself as an amateur for all the right reasons. But he's still an extremely good photographer. He'd almost physically shake me sometimes and say, "You can't do this!" I must admit, without Giles's support at times, I think I might have made an earlier retreat back into broadcasting. So I do credit Giles as not only one of my dearest friends, but credit, is that the right word? But I do thank him for being not only one of my dearest friends, but also for the faith that he showed in me. Effectively, he was a dad-like character during that period. Anyway, Emily says, a month or so ago, I met up with a photographer friend in London, Wayne Lahr, whose work, by the way, OMG, says Emily, is a perpetual source of visual inspiration for me. And it is, by the way. I shall leave a link on the show page for Wayne's work as well. And I'm sorry, chastise me, please, but when I say Wayne's work, I do want to leap into a bad Hollywood impression from a movie back in 1992. Can you believe Wayne's World Party Time is practically 3 decades old? Oh. Anyway, digressing again. Shh, says Emily. I can hear her now. Wayne said something really quite pertinent. He said that the more challenging a job is nowadays, the more he enjoys it. He loves being able to take all the skills he's learnt over the last decade and be able to deal with any photographic circumstance he's faced with to try and deliver the best work that he can. And this is it, says Emily. It's his comment combined with yours that has now spurred something in me. My ambition is, of course, to keep delivering documentary images, but I want to do away with brick walls. And no, I don't do that, or it's not what I do. there is actually something really energizing about approaching a job with, I'll have that new skill, thank you very much. Or, yikes, I don't feel comfortable with that, but let's find out why. And hopefully one day I'll feel comfortable calling myself a pro. Not because I get paid for what I do, but because whatever gets thrown at me, yes, I can deal with it. So thank you once again for being such a source of positive and calming energy. On that note, better get on with some editing. Take care, big hugs, Em. Thank you, Emily, who is a supporter of the show as well. That's very kind of you, and I always look forward to your emails. I know I know that they've been few and far between, as you say, but God, dear, you have been busy. You've been building your business. So it's always lovely to hear from you when you do write in. You see, comfort, let me just say, I think comfort blankets, and that's often how I've looked at certain types of photography that I do. I think, right, I know how to do that. I'm going to stick with that, and if anybody else offers something else, I'm going to say, no, it's not what I do. Now, there is, of course, a counter-argument to say that doing what you do is what makes you stay in love with what you do. And I'm not so much talking about that, really. I'm talking about feeling that you have flexibility, that sometimes you can step outside your comfort blanket, your comfort area, not your comfort blanket. Hang on, let me just I've got another lonesome... I'm not sure that's going to work. I'm just framing up a picture with another bale of hay at the end of the sort of corridor of greenery here, and it's not working. Do you know, I'm not going to make that picture. That'll be the one that got away as well. But yeah, comfort blankets can be really too warm sometimes, can't they? And I think it's worth casting them off and letting the fresh air back in the room, if you like, or something like that. So I think back to, personally, I think back to radio. All I wanted to do when I first went into radio was play records. And to an extent, for quite a while, that's really all I did do. But it was a certain producer in my life called Joanne who suggested that I open my mind to interviewing. And she supported me through that period. And she did ask that question, why not? Why? Go on. Oh, I don't want to do that. It's not my thing. Try it. And, well, look now. I mean, here I am doing a podcast. Some music has crept back in right at the end, yes. But actually, it's about talking with you, reading your letters, and of course the interview shows. So, yeah, Saturday's Patron More show tomorrow, I'm going to talk about the trust folk place in us as photographers, which often comes home to roost if you just open your mind about what it is you can do. Anyway, let's take some inspiration, shall we, at this moment, from Vogue front cover shooter Miss Anne Harriman. Now, Miss Anne came late in life. He's not that old. Later in life to photography. And in episode 148, he found himself he's found himself traveling around the world, a late starter who just says yes. But like many of us, he's also suffered imposter syndrome, and he questions his talents still. And in episode 148, he shared a little of how he gets through this.
It's a process. I don't know if you completely overcome it, but you can harness it to be a superpower. Similar to my dyslexia, I see that as, if I was an X-Man, and they were talking about my powers, it would be, he's dyslexic and he's got imposter syndrome.
I wouldn't ever have thought of it that way.
And look at what he can do with them. I harness it because in those depths of being sure that you should go put all your cameras on eBay and grow up, right? And just be like so many of your relatives or friends and bankers and lawyers or whatever, there's always a place in that abyss of self-doubt where there is a unimaginable amount of fortitude, because fortitude lives at the depths of despair. And that's what I always look for when I'm low. I look for that slither of fortitude, and I just grab it, and it just pulls me right out. And it pulls me right out to make my work even better. And I feel that self-doubt is something that is not there to be defeated. It's something to understand that it's okay to not be okay. It's part of being a normal person. All right, we're not supposed to always be confident, and I think when people realize that it's part of your growth scenario, I always look back at the work that I've done and I celebrate my little wins. So my little wins are not Vogue covers. My little wins are figuring out something that I didn't fully understand in Lightroom. Just something very little, some selective editing thing or whatever it is, or understanding that, some of the best light for a photographer that shoots the way I do is natural light and the kind of natural light that you can't see with the human eye. Walking into a room and looking at how light is bouncing off different parts of different walls, and everyone's like, mate, I can't see anything. I just love that, and understanding that kind of quirky, awkward love you have for what you do is your success.
Oh, it's fab to hear. Miss Anne Harriman again. Really enjoyed that conversation I had with Miss Anne. Are you feeling energised now? You should be. Now, I've come a bit further along the road, as I often do. I sometimes change position during the photo walk, and I think I've sort of exhausted the scenery around me. Let me go find something else. And look at this. I mean, you couldn't have written the script any better. I've arrived just opposite. Let me get some pictures now. I've thought of what the E is, by the way, an AWE, and I know you were shouting it at me. Aldermast and Weapons Establishment. That's what the E is. And this area around us has, every now and then it has sort of high wires and just a field of what looks like nothing except for one sort of ominous-looking grey box. But here and there, dotted here and there, are the signs of a good URBEX, a good urban exploration, because opposite, let me just get a picture. This is opposite the road from where I've parked car. We didn't feature car last week, did we? Might come back to that. But opposite where I've parked car, there is, it's just a gate, and behind it there's 2-3 small buildings that look like they've not been used for quite some time. But the fact that the sign behind me, which I've made a picture of, says has the word explosives in it. Stay clear, don't go in. Hang on, let me get a picture of this. Here's the gate open. Shutter speed 160, f4.5, ISO 160. There we go. Let me wander a bit further in. Now, this is where Kimmo and Tanya and all those that do urban exploration would go into the buildings, but I feel a bit twitchy about it because I'm kind of, I don't know, I mean, who might be in there? Is anybody sleeping rough? These are questions I must ask in a moment. What do you do? How do you scope an area? How do you make it safe? I'll make sure it's safe. Okay, so let's stoop down. I want to get a low camera angle through the wild grass here of the building. Here we go. Similar shutter speed. Light's not really changed that much. Hold on. Let's move a bit further in. Oh, further in all the time, Neil. Oh, it's getting brave. And here we go. Now, I mean, this hasn't been used. I mean, it says deep water. I can't see deep water around it. I mean, it's completely unused, but it must have been owned by AWE. I can't really go any further, so let me walk the other way. There's a footpath across the road. I can take that. There we go. Seamlessly joined together. But URBEX, urban exploration, sites to go visit, seemingly are all around us. Now I am on a footpath, and there's more high wire here. Signs that you are. I mean, it's a sprawling area. This. We went. This is quite a by the by, but we went on I shot a wedding in South Africa, and part of that wedding we went on a safari, and one of the guys that was with us was supposedly a security. Oh, there's a bunker there. There's loads of bunkers. The trouble is, if I sort of start snooping and getting pictures of bunkers and things, you know what's going to happen. Excuse me, sir. What are you doing? He says, like car. But yeah, that chap that we were with, he supposedly was in security at AWE, and he spun this yarn about how he had more power than any police force in the UK. Well, I suppose he might have done what they're guarding in there. Goodness only knows. No, I'm not going to start. There's a break in the greenery here, and I can get really close. But yeah, equally I can see cameras. Neil, don't do it. We want a photo walk next week. Right. Should we continue? Just a quick mention again for our wonderful patrons who, from the price of one high street coffee per month, maintain a future for this podcast. To thank them, all patrons get to hear the extra more editions, which are a mix of, personal photographic diary essays, our book club, and now extended parts of our guest interviews, which you can hear on the very easy-to-download Patreon app. And there's an edition every Saturday with extra pop-ups every whenever. And being a part of a wonderful community means that you have the benefit of broadcasting your website and your projects or Instagram to thousands of photographers in these Patron of the Day mentions. And we meet once a month on Zoom, and we have our Zoom meeting, if you're listening to this on the correct day, coming up on, is it Monday? It was Tuesday last month, wasn't it? Anyway, you'll have had your Zoom invite. Tomorrow, this Saturday, we're talking about why complete strangers seem to trust us as photographers and their innermost life stories. And I had a couple of experiences of this only last weekend, which I want to share with you. But that'll be over on the Patreon channel. Right, let's see where you've been making your photo walks. I'm going to include pictures on the show page today so you can follow exactly what I'm talking about. And the first of those is Eric Delorme. Hello, Neil. It feels like it's been ages since I submitted anything for the Photo Walk show. Life is a way of getting in the way of things, I suppose. Anyhow, I really enjoyed your urban stroll through Leeds and part 2 of the Terracopian interview. He's really quite the subject. He is. That's why I was keen to have him back, and I'm keen to do an actual London photo walk with him. He was covering, I saw it on his Instagram feed the other day, covering the current Extinction Rebellion protests in Londinium. And there was an extraordinary picture. I couldn't work it out to start with. I mean, I just looked at the picture, then I had to read the description of a bride behind the bars of a police vehicle, and she was sort of holding onto the window. And no, I'm not going to ruin it. I'll let you go and see his Instagram, Edmund Terracopian's Instagram, and you'll see the full story about why a bride is in the back of a police van. It was the oddest wedding picture, that's for sure. So yes, says Eric, today I took the day off work, day 3 of my last chemo round, and managed to go for a 4 kilometres walk in the nearby Taylor Creek in Princess Louise Falls Woods near my home, listening to episode 256. A true Friday photo walk indeed. Everything turned out black and white, no turning back, because I somehow set my X Pro 3 to JPEG only. I'm chalking that up to chemo brain. So I'm calling this one the accidental straight out of camera edition, because everything you see is straight out of the camera, save for a crop here and there. Eric, I've got to say, your straight out of camera chemo brain technique, whilst not being perhaps the most pleasant or wanted of settings, they work, or the pictures work. They're great. See the show page, and there'll be a link through to the full set. But I've chosen a few of my faves. A few highlights from his shoot. There's a picture of an organic bottle of beer that people seem to leave behind on walks. Why do people do that? I mean, maybe the people that leave bottles of organic beer behind think, well, it's organic, it will probably grow. Oh, just pick it up, throw it away. I'm with you on that one. Here's a collection of the most incredible shadows, silhouettes, studies of geometry, and frankly, it's an education in looking up, as we say with our photography. Don't just look ahead, don't just look on the ground, like my Uncle Jan, who was very good at finding £10 notes. Look up, and we've talked about looking up, haven't we? Before, Rob Merkiston is, he's a great example of looking up. Hello, Neil. To say I've been procrastinating would be quite the understatement, but at long last, here are some photographs from a recent photo walk nonetheless. About a week and a half ago, it dawned on me that a photo walk somewhere else than my immediate surroundings was long overdue. So I hopped on a train to the Hague. Oh, although I've worked and studied in The Hague for several years, I've never visited solely for a photo walk. The only thing vaguely resembling a plan. See, these are the photo walks I like. And that's what this show's all about, you know. I often find somewhere, think, that looks like a good place to take a walk. We'll just amble out that way. Sometimes there's more of a plan. Last week there was. But this week, for example, no. It's just you, me, the microphone, our cameras, and sort of a vague idea to walk. Well, an idea to walk, but in a vague direction. So I know what you mean there, Rob. The only thing vaguely resembling a plan, he says, was to walk from the train station to the business district where I used to work and wing things for the rest of the walk. Even though I usually prefer the countryside over urban environments, it's always a joy to seek lines and colours and textures within the latter. Moreover, the light was great this particular afternoon, and I quickly felt immersed within my viewfinder. This change of scenery was quite inspiring and gave me a kick up the, well, I'm going to say kick up the F11s, if you'll pardon the expression. Regards, Rob. Anyway, those pictures, the pictures of looking up, they'll be on the show page. In this case, I've chosen 9 of my favourites and held a few back for the 365 feature as well, if you don't mind, Rob. These are quite frankly stunning, Rob. They really are. It's inspired me, it has, to grab my camera and make my way to London to do a similar in the business district. I'm due to go take a few photo walks in the capital, actually, with a few friends. Though I have to say, I'm hoping for a lotto win because I dearly love a photo walk camper van. In an ideal world, Mondays and Tuesdays, I'd take your letters all over the country, stopping in, say, 2 or 3 locations, preparing the show for the Friday. But I don't know, seeing that I never get more than two numbers out of the 5 or 6 required, there's a complete flaw in my plan, really. Baldrick, I have a plan. Is it cunning? Oh, yes, sir. Yes, it is cunning. More cunning than the most cunning of cunning plans from a place so cunning you can't even find it. One for Blackadder fans there. This is the strangest footpath. Look at this. It opens up onto a pond right next to a private school. I feel like I'm in another area I shouldn't be. I mean, it does say public footpath, but if I'm not upsetting the people at Ordermaster Weapons Establishment, I think I'm just stepping through the grounds of one of these really posh schools. What are you doing here? You have no blazer. No right to be here. Anyway, I'm going to say that the pictures the community is sending in on these photo walks are nothing short of, frankly incredible. The whole point of Photography Daily was to build initially just a little daily show, but it sort of developed, pun entirely intended, and needed a real dodge and burn at times, and that's what's happened really. What's appeared in the tray is something that wasn't quite planned. And the photo walk format, which is unlike any other photography podcast, and then the occasional special, as we had on Wednesday just gone. Well, I'm glad. I'm sorry, I've got to say this. I'm glad I didn't stick this thing in the fixer too quickly, because the beauty has been that it's really grown. The features have grown out of it. So thank you. Please send your pictures and your stories in. On the contact page, you'll find an address. I ask on that contact form, why you shoot what you do, how making pictures has changed your life, what photographers you follow, and all those sort of why questions. So if you have any stories you'd like to share to inspire others, I'd be delighted to hear from you. And of course, I'd love to know where you're walking with this episode, as you do indeed make your pictures. So we'll come back shortly for another couple of mails to wrap the show, and unashamedly one is of quite an emotional leaning, actually. So are you ready to meet our 2 guests this week? I think their short bio says it all on the website, which of course I'll link to their website. I've been threatening to do something on urban exploration for quite some time now. I'm still very tentative when I find an abandoned place on my walks, as you found out just a moment ago, but they do literally litter in a small L way the countryside. Now I'm more aware of them as well. I seem to be finding them more and more. So my guests Tanya and Kimmo, they're urban explorers, and they formed together Abandoned Nordic, which is a visual art project based in Helsinki in Finland. At Abandoned Nordic, they write, we combine enchanting photography with a written storyline from our journeys in order to create a harsh but intriguing vision of urban wilderness. We travel to abandoned places around the Nordic countries and beyond, seeking places which have been taken over by silence. Oh, doesn't that sound wonderful? Here they are, Kimmo and Tanya from Abandoned Nordic. Tanya, Kimmo, I'm just trying to understand how you both met, because there's this story of meeting in Indonesia and exploring there, which I love. But equally, there's this abandoned old psychiatric hospital where, Kimmo, you were asked to go write about it, and Tanya, you were commissioned, I think, to go and photograph it. Help me out here. How did you two actually meet?
We met in Indonesia. We were diving there, and we didn't know each other, but we were diving together. And about half a year after that, Kimmo got that project. That's why we go to that mental hospital.
And so the psychiatric hospital, which I suppose in some respects, when you look around URBEX, that seems sort of like it's almost like the cliche place that a lot of people start with URBEX, isn't it? Abandoned hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, and so on. But that was the first experience for you, was it, of photographing an abandoned place? So what were your feelings as you walked around here?
Well, I think that hospitals and psychiatric hospitals, there's a lot of those places around, because many of those places they used to be like tuberculosis hospitals, which were quite far from the cities and urban places. And that's why they're difficult to maintain. And, if you look at UK, there are a lot of those places also. So it's kind of a thing that it's easy to start from those places. But I think it was kind of a surreal experience when you understand that there are these places which are abandoned. Because before that, personally, I didn't have this kind of experience or knowledge that there are these places. And
it's obvious you were both quite adventurous anyway. As you say, you've been on this dive holiday and then met up by chance again, commissioned to write and photograph this former psychiatric hospital for a magazine. But what makes this particular kind of adventure, URBEX, different for you? Because it's fair to say it's consumed a reasonable part of your lives now.
Yeah, and I think that the one thing that differs with urban exploration is that you aren't allowed to go there. You're not supposed to be there. I don't know about Tanya, but when I go inside this abandoned place, it's not a relaxed moment. It's a feeling that you shouldn't be here. It's not allowed.
No.
So it's kind of a stressful feeling, unless the place is really, you can sense the place that nobody really cares about the place.
If it's ruins and...
Yeah, but most of the places we go, we aren't supposed to be there. There are fences, or there might be, somebody owns them. At the end of the day, somebody really owns them, but they haven't been there for years. So it always is very awkward feeling of being somewhere you shouldn't be.
I wonder how much that mutual support actually means to you, because many explorers do work alone, which I would find difficult personally. I'm not sure I wouldn't feel too twitchy to do that. But the two of you working together, does that help you allay fears, Tanya, when you're entering buildings that are disturbingly quiet and you're wondering what's behind the door?
Yeah, we actually we aren't going together all the time. We might be like separated at first.
So how does the relationship work then? Because Tanya, you're the photographer. I mean, in the description on your website, you are the photographer. Kimmo, you are the writer. But I know you also take some pictures as well, don't you?
I think that I do kind of this reconnaissance, if you will.
Yeah.
So I walk a little bit and more rapidly around the place. I see if there's some kind of dangers, something very unusual, or something that would give us a clue that we should exit or we shouldn't be here, or something like this. And because Tanya takes the photos, Tanya usually spends more time in one spot.
Yeah.
I might be spotting more places, more like details, something that's behind doors. And I kind of get this overall feeling, and then I give it to Tanya, like there's rooms there, there's rooms there. You shouldn't go there because I spent like walking 30 minutes around that place and there's nothing to see there.
What are the dangers? I mean, you said you scope it out to check there's nothing that you shouldn't find there. I'm thinking, Well, off the top of my head, I'm thinking wild animals, staircases that can fall down, structures that are generally unsafe, floorboards that you might go through, people that are sleeping rough, others that might be there for other reasons that you don't particularly want to meet. Have I given you the list of exactly what you're looking for? What do you usually find?
One thing is there might be like hints or clues that it's not actually abandoned, it's just in poor condition or something like that. And of course, we are not like vandals or criminals. So if there's something like if somebody actually lives there, of course we exit immediately. But sometimes it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, assuming occasionally you must meet somebody and a conversation starts to happen. What happens at those moments?
Well, that depends so much. We haven't been in a situation that somebody finds us from his or her property, like from inside. That could be very awkward.
Yeah, there have been many times that let's say we spot a castle or villa or a manor house, and we go in front of that building, like in the yard, and then there's a groundskeeper who comes and asking who are we, and those conversations are like 99% of times they're nice and there's no problem.
You mentioned this respect for the places that you visit, that you could well be on somebody's private property. You said that already. You don't wreck stuff. You don't take stuff away. It's not all.
Go inside if the doors are closed or windows are closed.
Well, that was going to be my question. If you get to this really interesting place and you think, right, this looks fantastic, I have to be in there, but the windows are closed and the doors locked, do you try to find an entrance?
It's a message. If every door and window is closed, it's a message that this place isn't actually abandoned.
Because not everybody has that respect, do they, for these
No, somebody
places?
always breaks the window.
Yeah. I know you get asked, but equally I know you don't share. You don't share the actual locations, that is, of where you photograph, which comes down really to both of your code, your ethics, if you will, that you just don't want to publicize these places to the wrong people who may trash the place. You see beauty where others may see an opportunity to destroy. But you do, however, say to those who are explorers, who follow you for the right reasons, that Google is your friend. It provides plenty of clues.
Yeah, that's it. Because if you really Google and spend some time, you will probably find any place on Earth. If you just use your wits about places, you can probably find many these kind of nicknames for places. When you spot information about these places, about history, probably you can just search from Wikipedia about that year or that country and year and go that way and find the place.
Now, you both dive as well as visit overground locations. There's a lot to see that's submerged in the world, and it's a lot more specialist in terms of skills. What additional skills have you both had to learn? I mean, I don't just mean underwater breathing apparatus. When you're actually diving into, well, let's use this fantastic example of this underwater prison in Estonia that you're well known for visiting. That brings its own dilemmas and problems, doesn't it? Because that building's been sinking for a long time. Bits of it have fallen into the water, and there you both were, prepared to go inside the darkest parts of that prison underwater.
Yeah.
What sort of things are you looking out for when you're going in these places?
Well, you have to be pretty sure that your equipment don't get stuck anywhere underwater. That's more important than in.
Do you let people know where you're going so that you've got that safety backup?
Actually, we didn't.
For none of these places?
If you're going diving in places which have been formed or built by humans, many details tend to get lost really quickly.
Yeah.
So when we were diving in a prison, or if we go diving in shipwrecks or other places which are not natural, we have to really, I think, forget about the details and items and concentrate more on shapes and buildings and details which are not so small. Like, for example, in prisons, you can spot a prison by having bars on windows.
Of course.
So you understand, okay, this is a prison. Yeah. But there's not much anything else that would indicate that this is a prison. So the story, history, and that background information is quite crucial for our audience to understand that this is a prison. One thing that is really interesting about this prison is actually the link to other Soviet era buildings and this kind of a utopia of Soviet Union. And that tends to be interesting for people.
Many places like Chernobyl have practically become theme parks. I assume you're not so interested in those places.
Yeah, there are some places that are really popular, and then they become ruined by graffitis and drug users, and we try to avoid those places.
Because that's interesting, because in your photographs I don't see a lot of graffiti.
I'm happy to remove them.
Right. Well, that was going to be my next question, because you call it art, don't you? It's not called documentary, because you're not afraid of a composite image, are you?
No, I'm not afraid of. There might be a crash that is a little bit different than it's originally is. That sky might be changed, and I removed the graffitis. But when I look around the photos, then might be one of the 20 is a bit like much different than the reality is. They are pretty close to reality, but the mood and tones and things like that, I'd like to make the photos look like out of this world.
Because that they do. I mean, if I look on Instagram, you have a very familiar palette that runs all the way through, very earthy tones, green tones. That I assume you do that on purpose.
Yeah, that's my purpose, and I like to kind of get rid of too much color. But yeah,
and it's been very successful. The growth on Instagram, has that surprised you, or did it come organically? It's growing constantly, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It surprised us because when we started like 6 years ago, we wouldn't have ever expected that it goes like this. But we kind of thought that it would be very great to be one of the biggest.
Of course, it's nice to have so many followers, and it's nice to look the photos and remember all those places we visited.
And it feels good to produce content to so many followers. If there is only a few, then you easily get the feeling that what's the point?
So Instagram has been important in that respect of driving you.
Yeah, it was the main reason that we actually continued after the first visit in that mental hospital. We just noticed that those photos got so many likes, much more than normal photos.
Of course, these old spooky hospitals and abandoned castles, your underwater prisons and casinos, they're all on a grand scale, but often you come across smaller houses. I know I do in the countryside as I make my photo walks. Are smaller homes and smaller places you find that are abandoned as interesting to you as the castles and the big stately homes to explore?
It is, but it's hard to tell if it's abandoned or not so. You need the local information from someone else probably before you enter the from open window of some small house.
Yeah, I think that going into someone's old home, it's very personal feeling. Yeah. So you see bed, you see clocks, you see newspapers, you see
postcards and
letters,
pills probably.
And it's a kind of a personal experience. And I think many feel that urban exploration has something to do with this kind of a time capsules. I feel that when going into abandoned home, that's the most like time capsule thing that we have done, because there's so many individual stuff there, which is out of this world. But in many, many larger places like castles and villas, there might be not so many this kind of ordinary items that you could relate to.
It must be very when you go into a home and you find these postcards and maybe birthday greetings cards and old bills and things, newspapers. You must wonder, well, what happened? Why did you leave all this?
I think many cases, if we go to abandoned home, there might be unpaid bills, final notices. So that's kind of a
clue.
You can guess what happened. When this one time we went to this place where everything was still intact, like movie posters from year 2000, and they were like children's trophies from ice hockey games. So that's kind of what happened, because it seemed that everything stopped at once for this whole family. So it's kind of it's very interesting, but I feel that there is a hint of something wrong about going into those places.
And how does that feel? How does that feel when you get that feeling?
Well, kind of sad, of course, and you got the feeling that you have to respect building probably more than some that many people have visited before.
One of the first things that we actually did in this project was this ethical guideline, or this ethical goal. If we go into these places, we respect that places. We never give out the location. If there's some kind of personal information, we try not to give out that kind of image of misery or image of something bad happening. So if you look at our photos from places that has items, it's more like this, not that sad mood or this kind of bad mood. It's more like this magical mood.
You surely don't watch They're Behind You type movies, psychological thrillers and things like that. I can't imagine what that would do with your mind when you're going into these houses. But neither of you believe in ghosts, do you? Neither of you have. I did read a post where you said you'd never seen anything which makes you think there's something of the paranormal about this.
It would be very nice to see something paranormal. We kind of look forward to it, but we haven't seen yet.
Any plans, any places you want to go to that you haven't been that you think we have to do that?
I like lighthouses so much that I would want to see one in China.
In China?
Yeah, it's actually right in the eastern border, in the Russian-Chinese border, somewhere there. But like many people say that the greatest place or the most difficult place is to see the abandoned space shuttle Buran in the desert somewhere. I'm not going to say where it is, but many people say that that's like the holy grail of abandoned things, to see the Buran abandoned space shuttle. But many have done it, and now we see photos that it's covered in graffiti. So it's kind of I think that the one place I want to see is something that I don't know about.
Well, I know you've been planning books of your explorations, and I know you're keeping those plans quite close to your chest. If I click the shop link on your website, I'm taken to Tanya's beautiful, beautiful prints. But what about the book? Or is that like the Russian space shuttle location a secret right now?
Yeah, we've been planning doing that, but let's see, because I think that after every trip we take, we feel that the level has gone higher.
Yes.
So I feel that like it would be too early. Every time it's too early to start doing that. But I think that perhaps it's coming. But for me, it's more about doing it.
Any advice for? I know when I'm out doing the Photowalk episode of this show each week, I come across all sorts of abandoned things. Mostly barns, so they're not, up with your lovely country houses that you find. They are mostly barns. Occasionally they are old caravans that have been absolutely consumed by the vegetation around them. What's your advice for people that want to go urban exploring?
Well, probably many people don't know how much time we actually use to do this. Planning and finding places and then going there and going 100 different places in one trip. First of all, it takes you need to have that passion if you want to do it like us, like really do it all the time. But then again, there are people who go to one house, like when it comes to your way, and it's urban exploring. Yeah, also.
One thing that you mentioned before, we do art, and I think that's very important, and that's true. And I would say that one kind of a hint or suggestion from my end to people who are considering doing this is to clarify your motivation. Why are you going there? We see that places get broken and destroyed. And I think if you have like good motivation, if you have good intentions, then it's fine to do. But if you're doing something else than art or something unethical, don't do it.
My thanks to Tanya and Kimmo, and of course there are some examples on the show page of their work, but better still, follow the link and see their work. And on the Instagram page, I'm intrigued by an old pier or the old island that a pier once ran out to. They got a drone picture of this, and I wish I'd have asked them if they went inside, because I was stood on the beach in Weston-super-Mare in the southwest of England only last week, thinking, that looks intriguing. I was looking from the new pier to the old and wondering, how can I get access on that island? And Kimmo and Tanya, despite the fact that it's called Abandoned Nordic, actually they look like, yes, they've been to the UK as well. And I wonder if they got onto that island. I must ask them. That intrigues me. I've only just seen it, so I'll drop them a mail. I've arrived at this wonderful old church. A Tudor church. I'm just going through the Lich Gate. There you go, let's close that. And, I assume it's Tudor because it's got a building that's, it looks Norman in design, but then it's got this sort of Tudor outbuilding. Let me get a photograph of it. Hold on. It's a bit of a lifeless, cloudless, lifeless sky. So it's not going to be that, it's not going to have any bite. Could do with a neutral density filter slid in over the top, but of course I can't do that with an X100. Shutter speed 100, f5.6, ISO 400. There we go. It's a fascinating building. I think I'll go over to the far corner and have a sit down over here. Read the last mail of the week, or the last couple of mails of the week. We are closing today with some beautiful music to continue your walk to this week from When Mountains Move, with a song I found the other day called I'll Keep Driving. Beautiful. I'll play that shortly for you. Right, some pictures firstly from... we'll start with Jim Farmer. Hello, Neil. I'm a new listener to your show and I really enjoy it. Thank you, Jim. I've attached a recent shot I made on the Savannah River, which separates the former English colonies of Georgia and South Carolina. I drive over this bridge every morning on my way to work, and about a week ago there was a nice low fog hanging over the water, which is very unusual for these hot summer months here. I walked out on a dock by the river and made this shot with my Leica Q. Oh, you're making me jealous of your Leica Q, you are. And you said walk, so you rescued yourself. I thought for a moment you'd made the picture out the window of the car. Anyway, Jim says, it turned out really nice. You bet it did, Jim. I'm so pleased you sent it in. And we can show this on the show page. Jim Farmer's fog shot. That's one of the nice things about the winters when they come, the fog shots. I'm going to go and take a few real misty walks, I think. And so, we come to last mail of the week time. This is actually really a comment from the web pages, or comments in reaction to a show rather than mails, but we do comments too. Sue Sayer can start from Somerset, talking about Wednesday's show just gone, one of our new Wednesday specials. When the chat probably needs its own edition. So on the Wednesday episode 257, I chatted with Nikki Heppenstall, co-founder of Remember My Baby, which is a charity with photographers who offer a free gift of baby remembrance photography to all UK parents experiencing the loss of their baby before, during or shortly after birth. And I knew this... I knew this could be an episode that would be a hard listen for many listeners, though I thought it was really, really important as a subject to cover, really important. And it had one of the biggest downloads for a while, and it's still being downloaded. So I'm pleased that we separated that as its own edition. Anyway, on the episode, Sue said, what a fantastic listen today. I too was moved by this wonderful lady speaking so beautifully about the very sensitive and difficult time for Mum, Dad and the surrounding family. A superb interview. Thank you very much. Kind regards from Sue Sayer in Somerset in the UK. So thank you, Sue. Plus a mail from somebody who's asked to remain anonymous about Wednesday's episode too. Hello, Neil. When I saw the app message come up to announce a new episode, I automatically pressed play on my journey into work. Had I read the description, I might have thought it wasn't for me, not because the subject was in any way uninteresting, far from it, but because I too have been touched by the loss of a child and do tend to shy from the subject for many reasons. The way Nikki so openly talked of her own loss and the work her charity now does to take empathetic and I would imagine emotionally difficult portraits of children who are stillborn was really moving. We now have a 10-year-old who asks about the sister he sadly never met, and we're open about why everything happened the way that it did. We talked too about how many more good people there are in the world as he starts to ask other, more difficult questions. And Nikki Heppenstall is proof of this. She's used her skill and her own story to be there for others. There are so many more good people in the world, and thank you for introducing me to just one more. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for downloading that episode if you did a couple of days ago. And I think we should hear from Nikki, Wednesday's special edition, which I just couldn't seem to find a title for. There was so much to say, wasn't there? That's why I called it If a Tear Escapes, It Shows We're Human, because it was something that Nikki said in her conversation with me. Here's a little of Wednesday's episode featuring Nikki Heppenstall.
The one that springs to mind is a mum who was quite young. She was only in her early 20s. She'd lost this little baby, and it could have been my daughter losing a baby. I was old enough to be her mum, and I sort of came over all maternal at the time. And I don't normally become emotional in a session. I managed to keep a lid on it, because it's not my grief, it's not my loss, not my pain, and I can shelve it and be sad later, but I try and be professional at the time, you know. Having said that, if a tear escapes, it shows that we're human, and that's fine, that's completely fine. But this one family, I came across Mum again at an event. We have, in our local crematorium garden of remembrance, we have a baby garden. Which is looked after by the local Sands group. And it's a beautiful garden. And they have events through the year, especially at Christmas, for example, where people can go and remember their babies. And you're with people who understand completely your situation and your emotions. And I was approaching this event at the tail end of the event to just say hello to a couple of people in the charity. And this mum that I'd met, who was the sort of same age as my eldest, came towards me, and our eyes met. She was just leaving. Our eyes met. And there was a moment of recognition where we looked at each other and both went, oh yeah. And then we didn't say a word. We just embraced. We just had a little moment on the path.
Yeah.
And she didn't need to say anything because it was written all over her face. You know, and I was so pleased that she has those images to remember her baby by, and she went along to this event run by Derby Sands at this beautiful garden, and we just had that little, I'm welling up now, we just had that little moment of shared understanding.
Nikki Heppenstall from Wednesday's edition. Playing us out this week, here's When Mountains Move.
Stumbling out of the bar, I'm picking up change off the street. Yeah, I'm cruising around slightly buzzed, music blaring. I'm gonna keep driving till I stop caring. Sleeping in my car at a rest stop somewhere in Utah. Yeah, this state is nice and people are open-minded. I gotta keep driving till I stop caring. All I ever needed was you and I driving through Alaska in the middle of the night. To Fairbanks, I'll just keep driving till I stop caring. Got a hotel in Cheyenne when I had a nervous breakdown, because I'm not really sure where the hell I'm going. But I'm gonna keep driving till I forget about
So that's it for today. Keep sending any photo questions you have that you think may be a good talking point for the show. Send them to studio@photographydaily.show and I can feature you in a forthcoming mailbag edition, which is this Friday Photo Walk. On that note, remember you can also send in pictures from your own photo walks to appear on the episode's show page online with links to your website or Instagram. And we need your 365 pictures for our community. Tomorrow, for our Patreon supporters, there's a special members-only more episode where I'm confused by why people tell us as photographers their innermost secrets. And more stories, of course, plus the book club Pigeon dives into the world of the Birdmen, the characters in black and white who race pigeons. It's a world you may not be aware of. My thanks to Kimo and Tanya for joining us today as we walked, and I'll link to their website and Insta on the show page, and that's where you'll find all today's links and pictures that we referenced. Plus, if the Russian space shuttle was a complete surprise to you as it was to me, then I've popped up a film to prove that it did actually exist, and there are urban explorers finding it somewhere. If you haven't yet, join our private Facebook group and follow us on Instagram. Music on the show from the incredible artlist.io. And I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you next time.
Photography Daily is a Loading Zone production.